We all kind of like to know, where do we stand? Like, how are things going? Am I doing well, or am I kind of behind, or am I within my peer group? And what should I be working on next? Perhaps, what's the next stage or the next level? What's the next area of focus for me? And so, you kind of in light of these considerations and these thoughts and these worries that we've seen expressed by our clients, we decided to put together a little PDF that I think you'll be able to find rather helpful, called stages of financial growth. And the point of this PDF is to help kind of walk you through the various stages that you might find yourself in as you move along, especially towards financial wealth accumulation, like financial freedom or financial independence. We have like these terms that are just used, and it's not always clear what exactly they are. I mean, they're appealing. Like, who doesn't want a little bit of financial freedom? Who doesn't want a little bit of financial independence? But like, what does that mean? And so, we drafted these stages of financial growth just to help to give maybe some clarity, and for you to look at your situation and kind of be like, oh, well, which stage do I find myself in? Maybe I'm in this stage, or maybe I'm getting close to that next stage. And I don't know, there is something that just kind of helps to mark, our life, our pattern, our work as we move along. It makes things at least more interesting. It's kind of like, the dot on the map, and we can kind of slowly see ourselves moving towards our destination. Perhaps there's just some comfort in seeing that, hey, there's movement, there's been progress, there's been development. So let's start with financial dependence, as we call it, or just simply dependence. We all start off, in our human life that way, right? I mean, we're born, from our mother's womb pretty helplessly, and there's not much of it we have for ourselves, and we're very highly dependent. I don't really need to echo this. We've all been through it. If you're hearing these words, you wouldn't have to be anything older than 5 years old to realize that, hey, I'm pretty dependent on my parents, who brought me into this world. And so naturally enough, we start there too in our finances. And what does that mean? It means that we aren't generating our own income, and we aren't able to cover our own expenses. And we're at a place where, if we needed to, make ends meet and make things work, like we can't. Like, we need others, like desperately need others, in order to be able to have food on the table, or to have a place to live, or to be able to get around for the vehicle in our vehicles. So, I think enough said on this, but we start off, all of us, in a place of dependence. As we move along and we start to, have the means by which we can earn a living, whether that's through, advanced technical knowledge and study, or, we just show up one day at a job, at an entry level position, and they start to train us. And I don't know, maybe we're picking up, blocks of wood or something. We're cleaning up something. And we all can start somewhere, right? We start to do something that someone else finds valuable, and they pay us money. And so the next stage is a place of solvency, which we really see manifested most clearly in an emergency fund, where we set aside 3 to 6 months, maybe as much as a year's worth of living expenses that helps us get by. And what do I mean by living expenses? I mean that you have enough that if you were to cease all employment, you could make it work on the reserves you have for how many months. And so, naturally enough, if you lost your job and there's no income coming in, and you have just your savings, almost anybody is going to go and tighten that belt, as we say, and find ways to cut expenses, anything that's discretionary, anything that's superfluous, anything that's extraneous. It goes, right? And then we're still left, though, with some basic core expenses that, like, we just need because, we need it as a human being. Like, we still need to eat, and we still need a place to live, and we still need maybe a way to travel and get about. And how are we going to take care of ourselves? Like, those are your core expenses. So an emergency fund is geared towards making sure that your core expenses are sustained for how long? The next thing, though, I mean, this doesn't decide things, and it's probably not aspirationally everything we would want, but it is a good place to be at. It's great to have a place of stability. The next level is a stage of control. And what we mean by this is that we're happy with how our finances are progressing along. It's not necessarily that you're debt free. Sometimes people would focus on that as the next goal. I don't necessarily think being debt free is the next priority, but we're at least free of any high consumer debt. We're not getting, punitive interest rates, especially associated with credit cards or personal loans. Potentially with car loans or student loans, there could be decisions to aggressively pay that down, but maybe some financing cost is really reasonable, and it's actually a good use of money to keep that debt around. We've seen folks have student loan interest or mortgage interest as low as, I don't know, a couple percentage points, 2.5%. And if you can have debt that financed out at that rate, like there's no need for you to prioritize paying that back. That's great financing terms. It's really the equivalent of free money. I could show you a spreadsheet someday, but would walk you through how that's the case. But there's, a place of control would say, like, we're making all our payments and we're happy with where our debt obligations stand and the projection, the path, the trajectory that we're on. And, we aren't being pushed about, aren't taking on unnecessary, consumer obligations or expenses, due to maybe, these buy sell decisions where we get all frenzied and people have their influence, their persuasion on us. And so as you see our chart here, once you get to a place of control, this is a good place to be. I think it's a place that minimally anybody needs to be at. But if we're looking to accumulate wealth, like, it's not the end all and be all, it's still just another stage. But it's a place in which you may have to push pause of sorts, because the next stages are like almost like crossing the ocean, like coming from the old world to the new world, if you will. It's a big long journey, and it takes time and it takes effort, and it doesn't happen like these first few stages you might knock out in even just a few weeks, months, or years. It's relatively quick and easy, and we can work right through them. But then we stay in this stage of control perhaps for a long time. And what I mean by a long time is at least a decade or 2 decades, maybe 3 decades. It could be almost all of your working career. What would be the next level? That next level would be security, as we describe it. And security is starting to come in which we've been able to set aside enough in investments, but those investments have the ability to produce what we call passive income that is sufficient to at least cover our minimal living expenses. And so going back to that emergency fund, like, we may not be able to live on everything, but if we had to really tighten our belt, like, our investments have gone far enough that we can make those core expenses work. And what starts to happen with this is we see work becoming optional at this point. Like, you don't have to work because, if you got really tight with your expenditures, like, you could get by on those investments. Like, there wouldn't need to be anything else for you. The next stage is what we call independence, deepening this notion of work optionality. It's now, security is great, but I mean, we're talking about just our bare needs are being maintained. It's not exactly maybe the lifestyle we would want to live. Independence is that our current lifestyle, the way we currently live, is now able to be supported by our investments. So there wouldn't be any cutting back. Like, you are financially independent if you can transition to living on just your investment income. And in that transition, there's really no loss. It's not recognizable to you that you've transitioned, because the life that you were living is still the life that you're now living. It's one and the same. There's no reduction. So all your current wants, needs, expectations are being met. We call that financial independence. Great place to be at. Something we should have everyone working towards, for sure. But after that, I mean, could it get better? Does it get better? I think there's still yet a few more stages to work towards. I don't think you need to go any further than financial independence, for what it's worth. Like, if you've got to financial independence, I feel like you've gotten as far as what you need to get in life. The rest of these stages are great, but these other two are really like, this is starting to be the cherry on top. The next stage would be freedom. What we mean or intend by that isn't that just our current living expenses are maintained. Really, all our aspirations, our dreams, our wants, the things that we are hoping to be able to accomplish, and go, whatever that wild idea that you have that you would want to go out and do. And, it tends to usually be recreational or luxurious or some sort of fun activity. But you have enough set aside that even those things, which would typically be more like a splurge, like not necessary, discretionary, even one might describe it as wasteful, which I think is a little harsh, but it's you enjoying yourself. Like, you in your passive income can maintain that. You can kind of do whatever you want, really, is what financial freedom is suggesting. Like, that's a pretty big win. So yes, at least financially speaking, freedom is not being constrained by money, is what would be coming away from that. It's not just that work is optional, but even money is optional. Like, we almost have more of them what we know what to do with. But then I think there's still one last stage for your consideration. And this is a great stage, right? This is at the height of it. And I think anyone could achieve this stage. It just kind of depends. It depends on what you want. But this last stage would be a stage of abundance. And what we mean by financial abundance is like you really have more money to your name than what you know what to do with, but it's even more money even what your family almost knows what to do with. Like all of those needs are covered. Like your family is set. Like there's still more money yet beyond this. And now we're starting to talk about like what kind of impact or legacy can we leave behind in the world. This really starts to get to a point of like what kind of building do I want my name, to be attached to? Because like that's the kind of wealth that you've achieved and met. Like I could give a large sum of this away in charity. I'm fine. I'm still maintaining financial freedom. My family's going to be fine. Like we're in a place of abundance. And so I don't think this is optional. Like I don't think you need to work towards that. To be honest, I don't think financial freedom is optional too. In a place of financial security, financial independence, I don't know if I would describe those as optional. I think that's something anybody should be working towards. It's what we work towards with all our clients. I think these are good goals to be striving for. Whether or not you want to go to those next stages of freedom and abundance doesn't happen automatically. If you want that kind of wealth, you're working towards it, you're sacrificing for it. It is coming at a cost. It's not free. I mean, short of maybe winning the lottery, like maybe it's free in that way, but otherwise, like you're not hitting financial freedom, financial abundance without some sort of cost. So I think you have to weigh that out. Does that matter? But maybe it does. And maybe you're in a situation where you're fortunate enough in which it's going to happen just because of the nature of the work that you're doing and your income. And perhaps you're given to saving and you don't feel the need to spend. This would tend to happen with folks who are given towards saving. And it just starts to happen. You actually, whether you kind of realize it or not, I haven't run the numbers, you're coming into this place of financial abundance. You're really having not just more money than I thought of know what to do with, but it's like a lot more money but I know what to do with. And then we have kind of these great conversations about, okay, what do we do with that? Like, what would you like to do? What would you like to accomplish? Who would you like to benefit more so, with this abundance? So where do you stand? Where are you at in this pathway? Well, look, you might be looking for help on how to answer those questions. You're looking for a guide, you're looking for an advisor, you're not quite sure. You're just maybe afraid of making the wrong decision, or you don't know what you don't know, as sometimes they describe or say, and you're looking for someone to give you a hand. That's what we do. That's where we step in as financial advisors. Feel free to reach out to us. Subscribe to our newsletter. We'll give you more tips forthcoming. But consider having a call too with our team. I'd love to have a chat with you and see how we could be of help to work you through these stages. So please subscribe. Please reach out. We'd love to hear from you on any number of levels.